thank you ever so much. And first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody that is presenting for us today. I mean, here at PolyMAT, we're real big believers in spreading our network as wide as we can, because we know that the more we give, the more we get. We're all here for the same reason. We want to make a real difference to the young people in our care. And to do that, we need to learn from each other. We're very grateful, though, for the time that has been given up for all the presenters that are speaking for us today. They're giving their time freely, their expertise freely, which is very much appreciated. I do hope that everybody watching either now or watching on the YouTube channel later really get something from the different presentations. You'll be able to watch them as snippets on the YouTube channel as well, so you can just pick and choose the ones that you're particularly interested in. The theme of this particular PolyMAT Presents is unity, harmony and inclusion. It's something that we believe in very strongly here at PolyMAT. We understand the value of it, but I thought it would be just a little bit useful to talk about the big picture and the reason why we chose these three words, because individually these words may speak to you, but what I want to do is just pull them a bit together and put a broad perspective on the different presentations today, because each presenter is going to be speaking about something specific, and I think sometimes it's worthwhile understanding how these three different words actually work together, because we're all interested in getting the best for our young people. We know that to do that, we have to get the best from our teams, and unity, harmony and inclusion are three key elements of a successful team. And I just want to give a bit of an understanding from my perspective as to how these work together. So I'm just going to share my presentation with you 1 second. Super, and be able to see that now. So how do these three words work together? Well, first of all, I just wanted to bring up the definitions, the simple definitions of each word: unity, harmony and inclusion. They're probably definitions that you're familiar with already. I mean, these are not particularly difficult words to understand. We work with these words in our normal practice. So unity, that state of being united, joined as a whole, the feeling of being just part of the bigger team. You're not there working as an individual, you're working there alongside something that is greater than you, and I'm going to break that down in a little bit. The word harmony, the idea of something that's consistent and orderly. It's the arrangement of things together. It's how things fit together to make that state of unity, that wholeness, better, bigger, more fulsome, feel better. So harmony is about the parts. And inclusion, well, the practice of including all people and groups. And I'll talk in a short while about how harmony and inclusion actually create that feeling of unity and make that feeling of unity stronger. So let's dive into a little bit of detail with these three so we can understand how they complement each other and how they work together. So, unity, first of all, I think for me, one of the best ways to think about unity is think about the things that we already feel are bigger than us, but we are part of them. So the idea of a family, for example, our own family, or if you refer to your work team as a family, that notion of a team is something that we all can link into in one way or another. We know that we're part of it. We're not it, but it is part of us. We contribute to it, but others do too. And without the others, that bigger team, that bigger family doesn't exist. The notion of harmony. If we're taking that idea of unity, we're taking that team. Harmony is now about the individuals within that team and how they contribute to the part that each person plays within the team itself. And the part that the person plays enables that team to become stronger in identity, to feel different. Each person has a particular role within that team, within that family. And then if we take those parts, inclusion then looks at who or what those parts are, the composition, if you like, of that whole team. And the more diverse, the greater the strength. And I'm going to illustrate that in a second with a bit of an analogy. So we can understand that we've got these three different parts. They all contribute and work within each other. So let's now dive in one stage further. And I'm going to use an analogy in a second to kind of bring all these things together, one that I hope that all of us have experienced at some point in our lives. So this notion of a team, I just want to draw on the work of Jonathan Haidt. Some of you might be aware of his work. He uses what I think is a really great term to talk about this team, about how at times we feel part of something that is greater than us as an individual. He uses this phrase called the hive switch. He's talking about bees and how bees are all individuals, but they often, in fact, in the bees' cases, nearly always, operate as something that is bigger. They operate as part of the team. They feel part of the team. And as humans, we can do this. And sometimes our hive switch is triggered and we feel that we're not just operating as ourselves, we're actually part of something that is greater. We're moving as part of something that is greater. We're influenced by something that is greater as well. So we're influenced by it and we influence it. And the analogy I want to use is the analogy of music. Many of us will have had experiences where we're listening to music together, normally live music. We're there, we're part of an experience, we're in a concert and we've got people around us. And the music itself and the people around us are making us feel almost outside ourselves and feeling that we are part of that team. We're being moved by the people around us. We're enjoying being part of something that is greater than us. And I have to say that having been lucky enough to be part of that on many occasions, and many of you will as well, you'll understand that it's a great feeling. It's something that drives us. It gives us motivation. It gives us an energy. It makes us feel almost protected by that greater team feeling that is around us. And if we can create that type of feeling within our teams, it's a really powerful thing. It pulls people along. We all feel pulled by each other and we're pushing each other at the same time. Taking that music analogy then down to the idea of harmony. We know that we've got the team. We know that it's made up of a number of different people. So now let's look at the parts that those people play. Now, harmony is quite easy to understand in music because when we're listening to music, we can appreciate that if you're only hearing one musician or one instrument, it can sound a little bit lonely. But suddenly when you start adding different parts to it, there's a much greater feeling of richness. And this applies to the teams that we work with as well. But when each person plays a different part to us, not the same part, they're playing a different part, but it fits in with us, things suddenly seem to feel greater. They feel more powerful, they feel fuller. Now, in the case of music here, we could say take a quartet, 4 different people playing music. In this case, in our picture, I think we've got 2 violins, a viola and a cello. Each one of them is going to play a different part. And for those of us that have listened to such music, you can appreciate that each different part makes that oneness, makes the unity, the team, feel so much better. It feels rich, it feels full. But at the same time, if we're only talking about 4 parts and the harmonies that they bring, you can still hear the individual ones very, very clearly. But that also means that you can hear the mistakes clearly because each one is on its own, it stands out. And so to go alongside our harmony, the different people playing parts, we need to add a much greater variety. And this is where the notion of inclusion comes in. Now, if we're extending this analogy and we're now taking our 4 different parts in the quartet and we're saying that they're now sitting within an orchestra, something that is much, much bigger, but it's not just bigger, it's different. And this is the key thing for me for inclusion. We are adding difference because we know that difference adds different voices, different views, different eyes. And that makes that whole team much, much stronger. So, for example, if we took our quartet of 4 people, we could say, okay, well, if you want to make up your orchestra, why not just take those 4 people and have 10 of each one? So you've got 40 people. It's probably going to be a lot louder, but you know it's actually still not going to sound very different. And crucially, if we're talking about the mistakes that I mentioned earlier, if you've just got those 4 people replicated 10 times, if 1 or the 10 of the violins are all going to make the mistakes, you're still going to hear it. You're not going to be supported by those other people around you. because actually many of them are similar to you. They're doing things in a similar way to you. They're doing a similar job to you. They're using a similar voice to you. Now, this is where the notion of the orchestra provides greater richness, because by being inclusive, we're bringing in people that have a different voice, have different eyes, but they're still contributing in a harmonious way, and they're still feeling part of that team, something greater. So, for example, in the orchestra, when our violinist makes a mistake, you're probably not going to hear it, because the whole of the rest of the orchestra are doing things differently, and it hides it, it covers up, it supports it. And inclusion, therefore, brings us things that make us stronger, because we've got people there that are supporting us when we make mistakes. But also, it's undeniable that the richness of the different voices in an orchestra sound much, much better and stronger than they would if we were just taking that quartet and we were multiplying that up. And I think it's important, and I just feel that analogy, it's a really useful one, just to understand how by being united, that's a great start. But you need people to play the different parts. That's where our harmony comes in. But then you need to increase that diversity and be as inclusive as possible to bring in all those different voices. And by doing that, in the case of the orchestra, you sound better. In the case of our teams, we have greater impact. We have different voices. We're stronger, we're supportive. And those different parts united, having the harmony and having inclusion, as we go through today's presentations, each one of those presentations may well major on one different part of this, on being united, or providing harmony, or bringing in inclusion. But I want those people that are watching today, I want you to understand how they work together. And hopefully by providing a little bit of a framework there in my introduction, as you're observing the different presentations today, you can start to understand how they might fit into this bigger framework. Let me just unshare for 1 second. So thank you very much for listening to that introduction and allowing me to have the opportunity to bring in that wider framework. I really, really hope that today you take away something useful for you. You'll take away something that's different for you. That's the whole idea, that you take something and you fit it to your context. But I have to say, I have absolute confidence that our speakers today, I mean, they really are fantastic. So the speakers are going to bring you something really special today. So I hope you enjoy it. Please contribute. Please put things in the chat, ask questions. We might be able to take them as we go along, or if not, we'll try to provide answers when the presentations are up on our YouTube channel later on today, or probably tomorrow morning, actually. So thank you once again. Thank you to Mark. Back to you.